The holy grail within narrative and descriptive writing is producing something which is subtler and more sophisticated, something which makes you think but works. Using oxymorons in your own writing can be helpful in this respect, so let's probe. This is Schofield on Shakespeare.
Simili a degli eroi, abbiamo il cuore a strisce, portaci dove vuoi, verso le tue conquiste, dove tu arriverai, sarà la storia di tutti noi, solo chi corre può.
Let's start with a definition. I see an oxymoron as a phrase in which apparently contradictory terms appear in conjunction. Here are some obvious examples. These two are oxymorons because the two words seem to contradict each other, seem to present literal impossibilities. How can a silence be so incredibly loud that it feels deafening? Similarly, serious is the opposite of funny. So, literally speaking, how can we add an adverb of seriously to the adjective funny? But in this video, I'm not going to waste your time with these rather obvious, cliched oxymorons. I'm interested in the subtler ones, and so have plundered Somerset Maugham's wonderful 1930 novella Cakes and Ale to give you numerous examples of oxymorons to ponder and adapt. The title of this novella is inspired by a retort from Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, in which drunken revellers rebuke a household steward for trying to call a halt to their partying. And I think a key reason Somerset Maugham gave his novella this title is because he wanted to celebrate his free-spirited and free-loving heroine, Rosie Driffield, someone who loves and lives with natural abandon.
Let's get straight onto the oxymorons. Somerset Maugham is describing his first impressions of Ted and Rosie Driffield's home in South London.
Read this interesting extract and, perhaps, look up the occasional word in the dictionary. Where is there an oxymoron? This video will resume in 5 seconds' time. Press pause now. Now, of course, the main purpose of this video is to help you use subtler oxymorons. But every text you read presents an opportunity to get better as a writer, to get better at English. Grade 9 candidates at GCSE will be greedily thinking as they read, what does the writer do which I like and might experiment with myself? Grade 9 candidates will come across unknown or even more pertinently, half-known words, and insist on looking them up before going any further. For instance, I would want to know the exact definitions of stucco and dissipated. So here they are. Now for the oxymoron quest. Where are the consecutive words which, on closer inspection, seem to slightly contradict each other, thus producing more interesting images and ideas? Well, actually, within this passage, there are probably two. Here's the first one. What I like is the fact that this oxymoron is subtler than a phrase containing obvious opposites. Nonetheless, the contradiction is clearly there. Respectability refers to a socially acceptable appearance of the house. Society deems it a decent-looking property. However, this positive noun is slightly undermined by the negative adjective decayed, which suggests that actually the house is in a poor, crumbling state of repair. But isn't there also an oxymoron used here? Genteelly is an adverb, with positive connotations, whilst fuddled has the more negative meaning of being in a state of confusion, albeit a gentle, benign state. What I love about an oxymoron is that it refuses to oversimplify. In life, things, people, ideas are very rarely all good or all bad. There are shades, nuances, and decent oxymorons help to capture these more realistic, complex pictures, and thus have the potential to contribute to your own writing being more interesting and sophisticated. Time for you to have another go at locating and thinking about the effectiveness of an oxymoron. This extract actually precedes the previous one. The narrator is in the locality of South London and rather enjoying the atmosphere. Read this through, find the oxymoron, press pause now. We have the positive image of the energy and enthusiasm of life within the streets, the vivacity, slightly counteracted by the adjective sordid, which of course refers to the fact that actually this street in South London is pretty dirty, grubby. And is there also a feeling that this is the kind of street and area in which underhand, naughty activities are likely to take place?
In this next section of the video, I would like you to have a go at writing your own oxymorons using very specific prompts.
Here's the task. I would suggest including the oxymoron within a full sentence. Press pause now to have a go at this. I write, his tone was dismissively polite. He had no desire to prolong the conversation more than strictly necessary. The oxymoron lies with the phrase dismissively polite. Of course, good breeding and manners indicate that outright rudeness is not an option. But there is a way of being polite which also makes it clear to the listener that beneath the politeness lies, at the very least, disinterest. SOMERSET MAUGHAM wrote, "At first I was very cold with him and scrupulously polite, but he seemed so unconscious of the social difference between us that I was forced to conclude that my haughty courtesy failed to put him in his place." The oxymoron is seen in the phrase haughty courtesy. The narrator may be being courteous and polite on the surface, but it is clear that he considers himself of a superior class. Why should he be wasting his time with a social inferior? You should be getting the idea now. We're looking for nuances here, greater subtlety. Your second opportunity to write your own oxymoron. Read the task. It's pause time. I write, Lady Douglas leaned forward, sneeringly charming, demure in her flower-patterned frock. The oxymoron lies with the phrase sneeringly charming, which highlights her real attitude towards those around her. On the surface, she is full of compliments, but deep inside her, she disdains. SOMERSET MAUGHAM wrote, Lady Hodmarsh and the Duchess immediately assumed that cringing affability that persons of rank assume with their inferiors, in order to show them that they are not for a moment aware that there is any difference of station between them. The oxymoron lies in the phrase cringing affability. Her intent is to show friendliness, but it's so over the top, so overdone, that its superficiality is apparent. Time for one more. Write a sentence which contains an oxymoron using the prompt on screen. Press pause now. I wrote, Mrs. Templeton, tenderly resolute, broached the subject with characteristic directness. The oxymoron lies in the phrase tenderly resolute. Yes, she is determined to bring up this difficult subject. It is important. But she remains instinctively kind and tender. perhaps the phrase cruel to be kind comes to mind. Somerset Maugham wrote, Mrs. Barton Trafford treated her exactly as you would expect a woman of very good Scotch family, which she was, to treat an ex-barmaid with whom a distinguished man of letters had made an unfortunate marriage. She was cordial, playful, and gently determined to put her at her ease. The oxymoron lies in the phrase gently determined, which implies a softer edge in her decisive, apparently welcoming behaviour towards the ex-barmaid.
In this final section of the video, a different approach. I will include an extract from Somerset Maugham in which I've changed one of the words to remove the oxymoron. Your task is simple. Change one word back so that the passage once again includes an oxymoron. The interesting question is this: will it be in the same place?
Some brief context to this extract. Edward Driffield becomes a renowned writer. Mrs. Barton Trafford likes to promote and support writers. This extract refers to the imminent moment when Edward Driffield would become so much more distinguished than other writers of his period. I've changed one word here from the original. Can you change one word in this passage so that it contains an oxymoron once again? Have a go. It's pause time. Somerset Maugham actually used the present participle plodding to describe the athletes within his simile, emphasising the perceived superiority of Edward Driffield as a writer. What difference does this make? Well, it's a subtle but interesting one. Both plodding and sweating imply that the other athletes or writers are unable to compete with Driffield's genius. Sweating implies that they try really hard to keep up with him, but to no avail. However, isn't plodding even more damning, suggesting a much greater distance between Driffield and the rest? Doesn't this verb suggest comparative mediocrity? To plod is to walk with slow steps, and if you're doing this in a long distance race, you are sure to be embarrassed and outclassed incredibly quickly. Keen for another go? Try this. Context: the narrator is staring at a picture of a woman he is developing feelings for. Can you change one word to recreate an oxymoron? Press pause now to read and tweak. Somerset Maugham used the adverb softly to create a subtler effect. Plunging a sharp knife is already a callous, cruel act, even within an image. There is no need for the adverb callously as well. Using softly somehow makes the narrator's pain feel more sharp and insidious. Final go before we wrap things up. Context: Hillier is talking about the beautiful, enigmatic Rosie. Can you change one word to recreate an oxymoron? Press pause now to read and tweak. Doesn't the smiling change the feel of the entire passage? And isn't gravity always thoughtful? Rosie's smiling gravity gives her depth of character, yet with a charm. It gives her seriousness, but emphasises her kindness and positive zest.
You can now see on screen all the oxymorons used within this video. How will you use these useful devices in future in order to help your writing become more subtle and sophisticated? Many thanks for watching.